Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Matt.
Steve.
Kareem.
and we just finished playing Loot of Lima, which is a deduction game, a challenging deduction treasure hunt, in fact. And there is this map of some island around Peru, I think, and treasure has been buried on here. And we are pirates, I think, who are kind of sort of cooperating. We've been digging up the island. And we've discovered, if you look at my secret board here, at the start of the game, I've dug up all the red ones, so I know the treasure is not in these red locations. And then when it's your turn, you roll these 3 dice, and you pick 2 of them, okay? So maybe I decide to go for... I'm going to go for these 2, okay? Now, some of them have different types of terrain. You can see this is forest, and this is mountains, and the yellow one is like the beach. Essentially, you can see on here, the treasure can be buried in like mountains or forest or beach locations, and then in one of these different kind of compass point grids around the outside. So I'm going to go from west to northwest. This is wild, so I can make it anything I like. So I could say it's forest, so I'm asking forest from west to northwest, and then you mark it on the grid. So actually that would be a very narrow range, wouldn't it? If I pick a different terrain for this one, let's say I say it's beach, if these 2 terrains don't match, then you're not just doing one terrain, you're doing all the terrains. So what might be better is if I say west to northwest, I'm going to say all the terrains. So on the grid here, that could be 7B, 7F, or 7M, yeah? So the mountains, the forest, all the beach, between west and northwest. And then I look around and I try and work out, who do I want to ask? Oh, Steve looks a bit shifty. Maybe he's buried some treasure, or maybe he's been digging up these locations. So I want to know, has he dug up anything here? So I say to Steve, in fact, you fit it out on the grid here, so you can see where it says Steve. I would write down, in fact, everybody gets to write this down. So we're going to go from west to northwest, and we're going to ask about everything. So Steve.
1.
He's got 1. So I put 1 in here, and then you can see all the other things that Steve has been asked. You have 1 column for each player, basically, and you can track all the different things that have been asked. And then you use your little grid here to fill in the bits of information. So west to northwest, you can see I've already dug up 7B and 7M. So the only one left must be Steve. So you can kind of put his token in there, so you know it's his. So you can see as we've gone through the game, I've worked out, Matt had dug up this area. There was no treasure there or there. And Kareem had dug up this one. And so you're gradually eliminating various places. And when you think you know where a treasure is, so on this top part of your very complicated sheet, you're tracking what they've said effectively and where the treasure might be. So if you have a location where there's like 3 crosses, so 6M, for example, I think I figured out. 6M, yes, so you can see there's a cross here. Matt doesn't have anything there. Steve doesn't have anything there. And Kareem doesn't have it. Like, they don't have, that's not locations where they've dug up nothing effectively. They haven't dug in those locations. So I know the treasure must be there, and you can fill it in. Now there's 2 treasures, so you're then trying to figure out, of these remaining ones, where is this critical other treasure? And as soon as you think you've figured it out, essentially you just go around the table asking the questions one at a time. As soon as you've figured it out, you say, stop, I think I know what it is. And Cluedo style, you look at the real answers. So these were the revealed ones here. So if we flip these, so this is where the treasure actually was. It was 6M and 2F. So you can see I was actually right with my 6M, but the other one was 2F. It turned out to be there. So the first person to get there just wins. If you're wrong when you guess, then you carry on sort of answering questions when people ask you about the ones that you've dug up, the red ones. But otherwise, you just have to wait and see if anyone else can get there first. All right, so what do we think?
I really liked it. I really like deduction games, and yeah, this works really well. There was a few rules that we didn't play with, which are these special tokens. Everyone gets 1 each of them, and I think that would really kind of change the game quite a bit, give you a lot more opportunity, because one of them is a secret question that you can ask. Usually when you ask a question, everyone gets the information, so but being able to ask a secret question instead of giving everyone some information would really kind of change the tactics and change the way it goes. So yeah, I really like it. It's good.
Steve?
It's going to appeal to a certain sort of person. That sort of person is people like myself and Matt, and I'm not sure about Jonathan. Definitely not some other people, but I really like it, and I think it reminds me of Sid Sackson's Sleuth, which is one of the great old games from the 50s or 60s, whenever he made it. But in a way that is thematically there. You can think about, you actually the compass points, the complete circle effectively. You can go from east to west or west to east. You can cross the north barrier. You're not just kind of doing a grid of things. You've got that circular thing, and in fact, because if I've already asked about northeast to southeast, and later on I ask about east to south, and they give me a different answer or the same answer, I can start to kind of cross-reference those things, and eventually when I find out, because you've got ways to remember the information, and when you've got that information, you've got your little grid, you can say, oh, what did he say again? Well, he said from east to, well, he had 3, and you can, on your board, you can use those compass points to help you reassess old clues. It's not just about analysing a clue there and then. You can record it and you can come back to it, and you can have these great cascading moments. Jonathan won, but it took him several minutes to win. Matt asked a question that gave Jonathan the information he knew to solve it, but Jonathan had to go wait and then go across, and we're carrying on the game. I rolled and asked Jonathan a question, he answered it, but he's still carrying on trying to get the information from the clue because it all cascades down. That's really nice. There's also a bit at the start of the game where you kind of, with 4 and 5 players, where you pass tokens. Basically, I look at 5 or however many tokens I've got, and then at the start of the game, in a 4-player game, you pass 1, and a 5-player game, you pass 2. And so you get some information out. So Kareem and I might have some secret information that we know. I know he's got that, and he knows I've got this, which can speed it up because it is a bit of a slow game, and that's going to put some people off, and it is very thinky. But if you like deduction games, it's right up there with the best.
Kareem?
So I struggled with this one. It's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I did have fun playing it, but I like what Steve said about the sort of the spatial board and being able to track back what you could do. That's a really nice idea, but because I struggled keeping up with all the information, it was just I couldn't go back, because if I went back, I would take more time with the information. Like I didn't have time without massively slowing the game down. There was a moment early on in the game where I lost a decent amount of ground to people because Steve asked a very specific question about a very specific part of the board, which I just so happened to have. If I didn't have that, it would have been a bad question and it would have been a waste. But because I had that, and I felt slightly, I felt bad about that because everyone else got an exact answer and I got absolutely nothing. So obviously there's the chance of that, but because of the nature of you're rolling dice, so you're not specifically picking those things, and that technically would have been a bad question to ask anyway. You're not really going to get those moments. But I think I would need another playthrough to see if I could actually come to grips with it. But like Steve said, I like the board, but my spatial awareness is pretty bad. So trying to get grips with it, I found in my head I was converting the board to numbers. So when people were saying, "Oh, is it north to southeast?" I would go, right, that's 1 to 3, or it's 7 to 2, or whatever. Because they've got the numbers in there, you can do that, which is nice. But yeah, I think that was, I was definitely overwhelmed by the sheet. I was like, okay, so I'm doing this and I'm crossing these off. What does this? Oh god. And I was consistently paranoid about writing down the wrong thing, because obviously on the board you can have either north to south, but that is different to south to north. So if I wrote it the wrong way, and I was, again, because of the way my head works with spatial things, it was quite difficult. I had to keep double checking with everyone, this is the right one. But I like that the board in the middle, you can do that, and it was very helpful. So yeah, I think another playthrough was needed to sort of properly gauge whether I'd like to play this for a third time.
Rating?
Because of that, I'd say probably just a 5.
Okay, Steve?
This has probably replaced Sleuth for me. Not because I think it's any better or any worse. I think it's better quality produced, but more importantly, I think I could actually get this to the table. I haven't played Sleuth in about 3 years. I wish I could play it more. I don't get the people, but I think this will bring more people into the deduction sort of game. I think it's a bit graphically easier. It's harder to go wrong because you set those clocks out and you just count the red things. And the red stands out very much for me, even with Jonathan who's colourblind. So I think it's really good. I'd be on 8.5 out of 10.
Matt?
Yeah, I think I'd maybe want a few more plays to narrow down my number, but the number that came to mind was 9. I think,
wow,
I think
okay.
it's up there.
Right. I should preface this by saying I'm not generally a fan of deduction games. I'll happily play them. They're often just too slow for me. I don't mind the deduction element in and of itself, but they tend to drag. Having said that, I think this is the best deduction game I've ever played. So if you like deduction games, this is definitely a very good one. It has that whole, at the start of the game, you're trying to work out how to use the grid, and you're coming up with a notation system. How can you track all the different bits of information, like a lot of deduction games? And that's quite interesting to do. In the middle of the game, I found it dragged a bit, but that's just me personally. I could tell, like Steve and Matt were very definitely engaged. But towards the end game, I really enjoyed it, and it becomes like solving a Sudoku puzzle. I'll just show you my grid very quickly. You can see I've written in a few places, like I know there are 2 from here to here, and I know Matt has 1 between that top one and the bottom one. So as soon as you get 1, then you get these chain reactions, like, oh, if he's got that one, that means he doesn't have this one, which means he does have that one, which means Kareem doesn't have this one, which means he does have that one, and then you can kind of track it through, and that's very satisfactory, satisfying. You get 1, and then suddenly you get another one, and another one. Oh, I'm so close, I'm nearly there, I'm at the treasure. So it was an exciting finish, and I think you're going to get that every time you play, because of the way it works, you're always going to get those chain reactions as you go through the game. As long as you can keep up with the notation, there's a lot of information to keep track of, then it's very good, and I think if you like deduction games, you will really enjoy this one. I personally would be on a 7 out of 10 in terms of how much I'd want to play it, but if you like deduction games, you'd definitely be on a higher number than that. All right, thanks for watching. That was Loot of Lima.